I'm Chris Goodmakers, and I've watched every Predator film in the last few days. And I took diligent notes. I'm here to bring you a complete picture of humanity's interactions with the race of alien hunters, from the dawn of man to a prison bus in 2018. One small thing up front. While I may pull small details from the comics, I'm not including them in the overall continuity. If you want to complain about that, I don't really care. I'm not reading 40 years of Dark Horse comics in a week. Besides, the Predator fought Archie once. It doesn't count. Alright everybody, this is the complete timeline of the Predator. Our story begins at the dawn of civilization, at least according to the lore set in the first AVP film. There's no direct record of humanity's true first encounter with the Predator. However, it was perhaps the most important time for the two races. The Predators showed up on Earth and were immediately like,
it's free real estate,
styling themselves as gods to the primitive society. These fake alien gods didn't build a Stargate, however. They built a hunting ground. A great pyramid was built to facilitate the Predators in hunting their ultimate prey. No, it's not humanity. We're way too squishy and dumb. It's the drool-mouthed xenomorph of the Alien franchise. This prey became so important to the hunters that dispatching one was a rite of adulthood. At some point though, their plan to farm an intelligent and very hostile race went slightly off the rails. Of course, we all know the Predator's go-to move when they're losing. Flip the board and set off a wrist nuke. What a bunch of babies. While the xenomorph remained a key adversary for the Predators, the hunters decided to scale back their godlike images. In fact, from this point on, secrecy was the word of the day for the Yaucha race. Small tangent time. In my last video, I pronounced it Yaucha, which is how I have pronounced it for decades. However, there were a slew of comments saying I pronounced it wrong. But the thing is, every one of those comments had a different proper pronunciation. It's a fake word from a comic book. I'm saying Yaucha. Anyway, after that spectacular failure, the Predators constructed another temple in Antarctica and set it on a 100-year timer. Presumably the 100-year thing is still happening, but our next major encounter with the Yaucha is on the American plains of 1719. It's the movie Prey, everyone. It's unknown how much Earth was used as a hunting ground in the intervening years, but 1719 is when humanity really caught the attention of the Predators. We are introduced to a member of the Predator race from a more arid region of their homeworld. There are different kinds of Predators, just as there are different kinds of humans. This one is a young hunter starting out on his own. By the way, in rewatching all these movies, I gave every unique Predator a name to keep track of them all. It's the kind of name you would associate with a big game hunter using overkill weapons to shoot lions and elephants. You know, the kind of names dentists have. I know some of them already have names like Tusk or Wolf, but my names are better. Chet systematically challenges the various beasts of the region before settling on humanity as a suitable target. Given that humans were mostly just the gullible dummies that let themselves be implanted with chest bursters, it's safe to say Chet wasn't worried about us at first. However, thanks to Naru and Chet's severed head, the rest of the Predator race now know humans are worthy to be hunted on their own. Chet's weaponry also makes him stand apart from his counterparts. While the ancient aliens of AVP already had wrist bombs and plasma casters, Chet has laser-guided arrows. It's possible this subspecies has different weapons, but I choose to believe it's because Chet is the kind of pro shop a-hole who's constantly bragging that the only real hunting is bow hunting. Hey Chet, you're not exactly crafting a bow from a bunch of saplings and horsehair. You have a laser-sighted crossbow with an 8x scope. It's still unfair. While Prey ended with a potential meeting between the Comanche and the Predators, our next encounter brings us back to the world of AVP. As I mentioned earlier, the 100-year cycle of the Antarctic Pyramid was presumably continuing along in the background this entire time. However, the only on-screen evidence we have comes from the special edition of the first crossover film. In 1904, a whaling station had been constructed on top of the hidden alien breeding ground. When this cycle began, aliens escaped the confines of their prison and attacked the whalers. Given what little we see of this event, it's easy to assume that everyone but the whales died. Though that does raise a very important question. What if the Predator fought Moby Dick? The next major on-screen encounter with the Ucha was the classic Arnold film. However, Predator 2 gives us a few possible encounters previous to that. While Gary Busey does tell Danny Glover about the first film, he also mentions that the Predator has been spotted in Iwo Jima, Cambodia, and Beirut. Since the Predator is drawn to places of both high heat and lots of violence, we can make a semi-safe assumption about when these specific places saw the most conflict. Iwo Jima was the setting of one of the fiercest battles in World War II. If the Predator was also on that island, it would have been between February 18th and March 26, 1945. This is even slightly confirmed by the presence of a katana in Predators.
This is old. Very old.
Cambodia experienced a brutal civil war that led to a terrible genocide between 1975 and 1979. Beirut is also pre-Arnold because of the 1982 siege of that city. I'm not turning this video about the Predator into a history lesson, so if you want more info, go read up on the 1982 Lebanon War. However, that capital city would have been a prime hunting ground at that time. It's unknown if there were any people who survived an encounter with the Ucha from these events. We do know that the next event was the first time anyone had a detailed documented report on the alien. We have another Predator, and this time, his name is Troy. Troy has decided to hunt in the jungles of Guatemala in the exceptionally hot summer of 1987. Guatemala may even be a regular hunting ground for him or his race. Anna tells of a time when she was a little girl and men would go missing. She says the deaths returned at the start of the summer and have been going on for a few months. So Troy is well into his hunting season by the time Arnold and his beefcake crew arrive. Troy stalks and dispatches every member of the squad one by one until only Anna and a very dusty Dutch remain. Troy ends up going head to head with the very muddy Dutch, but finds himself outwitted by a double trap. After a 2-ton log falls on the alien hunter, he activates his personal failsafe. Dutch beat you, Troy, but I guess you're good enough to collect trophies, but too good to be one. Hypocrite. Dutch and Anna both escape with their lives. They both give a detailed report that will end up being shared with intelligence agencies around the globe. Among these agencies are the Israeli Defense Force and a newly created secret US task force. This group will pop up over the course of the rest of the series, but has no official name. It's not even clear if it's one unified group. The Predator refers to them as Project Stargazer, but I'm calling them the Ladybugs because why not? It's my video. Well, it's ScreenRant's, but it's mostly mine. So that brings our next encounter to the streets of LA in the near future of 1997. All right, time for another small tangent. I know a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia when it comes to Predator 2. I used to be like you. Then I rewatched Predator 2 as an adult. It's not a good movie. It's more like a critical mass of 80s cop movie tropes embodied by a wildly miscast Danny Glover. Everything after the train is kind of cool though. Anyway, our Predator for the film is Chad. Chad has parked his ship in the LA Aqueduct because the city is suffering from a drought and record heat. That, mixed with the violence, make it prime hunting season. However, Chad has no idea that he's the one already being hunted. The Ladybugs are in town and led by Gary Busey and baby Adam Baldwin. They have been tracking the Predator by its victims and determined that every 2 days it goes to feed in a local meat warehouse. I wonder what Chad's killer burger recipe is. I can't wait for him to over-explain why bison is the true red meat. The Ladybugs set a trap for Chad, but underestimate their alien target. Chad has some tricks up his sleeve, including switching the spectrum to see the UV lights emanating from the unlucky Ladybugs. Everyone then recreates the second best scene from Aliens. Chad dispatches most of the Ladybugs on site, but is injured by a pursuing Detective Hartigan. Chad has a weird relationship with this one police detective. It's established multiple times that predators can single out individual humans to hunt. It's usually because they are considered worthy of the challenge. However, no one screws with their target as much as Chad. This alien dick acts more like Michael Myers when he stalks Hartigan's friends, and then taunts him with their personal items while following him to cemeteries. Maybe Chad is courting Hartigan, like he saw the necklace and was like, "What? I thought you would like it." This potential relationship is cut short when Hartigan follows Chad back to his ship and sticks an autoclave in his chest. Chad's bros then remove his body and give a consolation prize to Hartigan. I didn't mention it earlier, but the pistol was taken from Naru after she used it to dispatch Chet. It's a good bit of symmetry in returning the pistol to another human who claimed victory over a hunter. They even polished it up for Hartigan. Chad's bros blast off, leaving LA behind. I don't blame them for getting out of there quick. They have a once-in-a-century hunt to prepare for. Yes, it's 2004 and that Arctic pyramid is getting mighty hot. A passing Wayland Industry satellite detects the heat signature. Industrialist Charles Bishop Wayland puts together a team of scientific experts to pillage the alien tech inside. Unfortunately for almost all of his team, the only thing they find is extra jumpy facehuggers with an incredibly fast gestation time. 3 young predators also arrive to begin their xeno-hunting rite of passage. These are 3 young hunters, starting out and trying to earn a name for themselves. As such, I gave them typical millennial names, but ones that still sound like they come from privilege. If you could fit a polo shirt over any of those buff chests, you bet that collar would be popped. Buck, Dwayne, and Jaden arrive just in time to see a bunch of humans getting handsy with their plasma guns and overbreeding the nasty space bugs. Buck and Dwayne are almost immediately dispatched by their chosen prey, but Jaden ain't no punk. Jaden is officially the MVP of Predators when it comes to this entire franchise. I know that could ruffle some purist feathers, but the truth is hard. Jaden is smart for a Predator and defeats a xenomorph in hand-to-hand combat. He then teams up with a squishy human that manages to do the same. Game recognizes game. Jaden and Alexa narrowly escape the flood of Xenos using a frickin' rocket sled. These pair of absolute mad lads then defeat an alien queen using a spear and a broken water tower. Unfortunately, the legend that is Jaden falls in battle. He is quickly collected by his bros, one of which has a styling red cape. They fly off with his body, but the dummies don't scan him for aliens, and whoa, turns out Jaden should have used protection because we have a pred alien in the house. The pred alien is fully grown in record time and quickly dispatches the Yaucha aboard their ship as it circles Earth. Some dummy with a plasma caster destroys the engine and the whole alien-infested kit and caboodle crashes near a remote mountain Colorado town. Come on down to South Park and get xenomorphed. Naturally, the aliens and their pred alien leader wreck shop, but just behind them is professional Yaucha cleaner, Jackson. Jackson, by the way, is spectacularly bad at his job. This loose cannon is supposed to go to Earth and eradicate every trace of predator and alien crap, and yet he can't stop himself from hunting every human he encounters. This guy is so far behind his targets that by the time he catches up to them, the whole town is overrun. Hey Jackson, maybe if you did your job and spent less time skinning deputies, this whole town wouldn't have had to be nuked. A few people survive, but the Yaucha plasmacaster one of them has ended up with ends up in the hands of a pre-merger Yutani corporation. Does that matter? No. Because now we're done with anything involving the Alien franchise. In 2010, a group of dangerous individuals are captured and taken to an alien world. It's a game preserve where species that have challenged the Yaucha in the past are hunted and learned from. The group of fresh meat includes an IDF sniper who was briefed on the 1987 encounter with Troy. This is also the first time we learn that the Yaucha race isn't necessarily homogeneous. A group of larger preds is hunting their own as well. The 3 predators hunting our protagonists are Reginald, Loxley, and Winston. I went with British names because of their uses of dogs, like stuffy fox hunters. The surviving prey for the trio end up freeing Spike, a predator they find attached to a huge spike. Hey, I had watched 5 movies before this one. I was running out of creativity. Spike fights Reginald, the last survivor of his hunting trio. Spike loses, but so does Reginald at the hands of a weirdly swole Adrian Brody. The 2 survivors are then left alone on the planet, waiting for a sequel that will never be greenlit. Unfortunately for all of us, the sequel we got was Okay, how do I explain this one without taking 20 minutes to complain about every stupid plot hole? In 2018, a rogue predator steals an advanced piece of alien weaponry called the Predator Killer. He is pursued by an 11-foot tall genetic monster I dubbed Charles. Only you pronounce it as Charles. This world-class a-hole is the only predator that seems to not have the famous code. This guy wants to steal an autistic kid's spine so that he can steal his autism. The Ladybugs, led by Sterling K. Brown, capture the fleeing predator I dubbed Crash. Crash quickly escapes and immediately starts slaying the very humans he supposedly showed up to help. Solid plan, Crash. Charles destroys Crash and then tries to steal autism because it is the next step in human evolution. But that ends up with Charles blown up and the Predator Killer in the hands of the Ladybugs. It's okay though, because they are now led by the very man they spent the whole movie trying to shoot. And then they all look at the Predator Iron Man armor while waiting for a sequel that will never be greenlit. While the Predator has had 7 films at this point, not a single human character appears in more than one movie. The closest is Gary Busey's son playing Gary Busey's son. If I learned anything from all these movies though, it's that the Predator is a big cheater. A whiny baby, often incompetent and always too easy to anger. Man, what a punk! Aw, dang.